He's my father. Audra's DNA results destroy Genoa City's balance. Victor and Jack in total shock. My father is who? The results of Audra's DNA test are really going to mess things up in Genoa City. Victor and Jack are completely shocked by the news of Audra's DNA results. In the town of Genoa City, secrets are a deal and family names can be used as weapons. One day something big happens that changes everything. It starts quietly with Audra Charles. She is standing alone in her penthouse apartment as the sun rises over the city. She is staring at a letter she got in the mail. She said she was going to burn it without reading it. Audra does not believe in fate or happy endings that come late. Something about the letter makes her want to open it. She thinks about all the times her mother would not tell her things and would be quiet. She thinks about how she never fit in anywhere. She was never part of a group and never fully left out either. All of this leads up to her wanting to know what is in the letter. So she opens it. Reads the results of a DNA test. The room feels like it is spinning. The air feels thin. One line on the paper changes everything she thought she knew about herself. It says who her father is and the probability is 99.99%. The name on the paper is one she never thought she would see. It is a name that means power and a strong family history in Genoa City. It is a name that has helped some people and hurt others. Audra says the name loud, but she is not happy about it. She is shocked. She thinks about what this means and it feels like a wave crashing over her. She asks herself if this man is really her father. Suddenly everything she thought she knew about herself and her family is different. Every move she made was calculated. Now she is not so sure. She's ever made feels less like strategy and more like instinct. Every clash with authority figures tinged with something deeper, something inherited, and she laughs. A brittle sound that quickly fractures into silence as she realizes this truth won't stay contained for long. Not in a town where secrets bleed through the cracks. And sure enough, the shockwave begins its violent spread when the results land in the wrong hands. First with a trusted lab tech who recognizes the significance and panics. Then with a whispered phone call that reaches Victor Newman before breakfast. Victor, who prides himself on knowing everything before anyone else. Victor, who has faced coups, betrayals, prison cells, and death threats without blinking. Yet this news hits him like a gut punch because the name on that report is one he knows intimately, not as an enemy or ally but as a rival of equals, a man whose legacy is as entrenched in Genoa City as his own. And Victor's jaw tightens as he reads, eyes narrowing not in fear but calculation, because if Audra Charles is his, then the board just changed, the game just escalated, and nothing about the delicate balance between Newman and Abbott can remain untouched. And across town Jack Abbott is having his own reckoning as the same truth reaches him through a back channel he cultivated years ago. Jack, who has rebuilt himself countless times, who believes he's finally stabilized his family and his company, who has learned the hard way that the past never stays buried, and when he sees Audra's name paired with that DNA confirmation, color drains from his face, because Jack understands lineage better than most, understands how one revelation can fracture trust, ignite old rivalries, and rewrite history overnight, and his mind races through every interaction he's had with Audra, every tense conversation, every moment he sensed something familiar in her defiance, her intelligence, her refusal to bow, and suddenly those instincts feel less coincidental and more prophetic, as if Genoa City itself was whispering the truth all along and no one was listening. And while Victor and Jack reel in private, Audra moves through the city like a live wire, her secret burning beneath her calm exterior as she weighs her options, because Audra knows information is power, but timing is everything, and she refuses to be reduced to a footnote in someone else's legacy. She won't be the scandal they clean up behind closed doors. She won't be the daughter hidden away for convenience, and when she finally decides to confront the truth head, she does it in the most Audra way possible, orchestrating a meeting that pulls Victor and Jack into the same room under the guise of business, a neutral space charged with decades of hostility and mutual respect, and when she enters, poised and unflinching, the tension spikes instantly, Victor's eyes locking onto her with a new intensity, Jack studying her like a puzzle whose final piece has just snapped into place, and Audra doesn't waste time, doesn't soften the blow. She places the DNA results on the table between them like a loaded weapon and lets silence do the damage, and when she speaks, "You should know who I am to you now." The words slice through the room, and Victor, for the first time in a long time, is speechless. his carefully constructed defenses faltering as he processes the possibility that Audra Charles is not just another ambitious player but his blood, while Jack feels a conflicting surge of shock and grim understanding, realizing this revelation ties Audra irrevocably to the central war of Genoa City, and the fallout is immediate and brutal. Alliances wobble, whispers explode across Newman Enterprises and Jabot alike, executives scramble to reassess loyalties, because if Audra carries that lineage, then her rise was never accidental, and the question becomes not whether she belongs, but how much she intends to claim, and Victor oscillates between denial and fierce protectiveness, the patriarch in him clashing with the strategist, because acknowledging Audra publicly could destabilize his family, threaten existing heirs, and expose vulnerabilities his enemies would exploit, yet rejecting her outright feels impossible, not when the evidence is irrefutable and the pull of blood undeniable, while Jack watches from the sidelines with a mix of concern and fascination, recognizing that Audra now sits at the crossroads of every major conflict. In town, her existence alone capable of reigniting old wars or forging unexpected alliances, and Audra, fully aware of the chaos she's unleashed, refuses to apologize for it, confronting whispers with a cool smile, daring anyone to underestimate her, daring Victor to deny her, daring Jack to pretend this doesn't change everything, because it does. It changes the way power moves through Genoa City, the way decisions are made, the way enemies choose their battles, and as the news spreads to Nikki, to Victoria, to the Abbotts, each reaction adds another layer of tension, fear, and intrigue, because a daughter born in the shadows has stepped into the light, and no one knows whether she'll burn the city down or rule it, only that Genoa City will never be the same again now that the truth is out, now that the question who is Audra Charles has finally been answered with the most dangerous response of all, she's family, and in this town, family is everything. Picking up in the aftermath of that explosive reveal, Genoa City doesn't simply react, it convulses, because a truth like this doesn't ripple politely, it tears through lives with sharp edges, and the first cracks appear inside the Newman family itself, where Victor retreats to his office at Newman Enterprises, shuts the door with finality, and stares out at the city he's ruled for so long, his reflection in the glass looking older, heavier, not weakened but burdened by a realization he never planned for, because Victor Newman has always believed he controls the narrative of his life, that nothing happens without his consent or his orchestration, yet Audra Charles exists outside that mythology, a consequence of a past he compartmentalized, a decision he buried beneath acquisitions and conquests, and now that past has teeth, intelligence, ambition, and a will that mirrors his own so closely it unsettles him, and as memories resurface, fleeting, half-forgotten images of a woman he once underestimated, a relationship he dismissed as inconsequential, Victor's anger isn't directed outward but inward, because for all his power, he failed to account for this, failed to see his legacy expanding beyond the lines he drew, and when Nikki enters, sensing the shift before a word is spoken, she reads the truth on his face, her composure cracking as he confirms it in a low, controlled voice, and Nikki's reaction is layered with shock, hurt, and a dawning fear, not of Audra herself but of what this means for the fragile equilibrium of their family, for Victoria's position, for Nick's loyalty, for the trust they've rebuilt after years of betrayal and survival, and Nikki understands immediately that Audra won't be content with acknowledgement alone, that a woman who fought her way to the top without knowing her lineage won't suddenly step aside now that she does. And across town at the Abbott mansion, Jack gathers Kyle and Diane, the gravity in his expression silencing any casual conversation, and when he explains what he's learned, Diane stiffens, because she recognizes the danger before Jack even articulates it, recognizing a woman like Audra as both threat and opportunity, someone who could destabilize Victor's empire or strengthen it depending on how she's embraced, while Kyle reacts with a mixture of skepticism and concern, his instincts warning him that Audra's ascent just became personal, because in Genoa City bloodlines aren't just family ties, they're claims to power, and as the younger generation processes the news, whispers spread through crimson lights, through society, through every boardroom and back corridor, each version of the story growing sharper, more sensational, until Audra's name is no longer spoken with curiosity but caution, and Audra herself watches it all with calculated calm, refusing interviews, declining invitations, letting the mystery ferment, because she knows anticipation is a weapon, and when she finally chooses to speak again, it's not to Victor or Jack but to herself, standing before a mirror, rehearsing not vulnerability but resolve, reminding herself that she didn't ask for this lineage, but she'll damn well decide what it becomes. And when Victor eventually summons her, the meeting is nothing like the confrontations he's mastered over the years, because Audra doesn't flinch, doesn't seek approval, doesn't demand affection, she simply states her terms, that she won't be hidden, won't be silenced, won't be manipulated into a pawn, and Victor, recognizing his own reflection in her defiance, realizes this is not a battle to win but a reality to integrate. Yet even as he considers public acknowledgement, he weighs the cost, because every move he makes now will be scrutinized not just by enemies but by family, and meanwhile Jack, observing from a distance, begins to strategize differently, seeing Audra not just as Victor's daughter but as a bridge between worlds, someone who could destabilize Victor's iron grip or entrench it further, and Jack's internal conflict deepens as he grapples with his own complicated history of fathers and sons, secrets and revelations, knowing too well how DNA truths can scar as much as they can clarify, and when Audra crosses paths with him again, their conversation is quieter, more introspective, Jack offering not guidance but understanding, warning her that Genoa City will try to define her by this revelation, that she'll be pushed into narrative she didn't choose, and Audra listens, appreciative but unmoved, because she's already decided that this truth won't cage her, it will sharpen her, and as the days unfold, Victor's hesitation becomes its own story, sparking speculation about whether he'll claim Audra publicly or keep her at arm's length, and that limbo breeds tension within Newman Enterprises, where executives second-guess directives, alliances fracture, and Audra's mere presence at meetings shifts dynamics, her voice carrying unexpected weight, and when Victor finally makes his move, calling a press conference that pulls the city's elite into one room, the atmosphere is electric, cameras flashing, whispers buzzing, and as he confirms Audra Charles is his daughter, the collective gasp is almost theatrical, yet Audra remains composed, standing beside him not as a subordinate but an equal, and in that moment, Genoa City understands this isn't a scandal to be managed, it's a new chapter to be endured, because Audra doesn't fade into the background, she steps forward, articulating her vision, her intentions, making it clear she won't dismantle the past but she won't be bound by it either, and reactions explode. Victoria masking concern behind professionalism, Nick questioning Victor's judgment, Nikki grappling with acceptance, each response adding complexity to a family already defined by conflict, and Jack, watching from the crowd, feels the weight of inevitability settle, knowing this revelation has altered the trajectory of every major player, and as the dust settles, alliances begin to realign, enemies reassess, and Audra stands at the center of it all, not triumphant, not remorseful, but resolute, because the truth didn't just answer a question about her past, it gave her leverage over the future, and Genoa City, bruised and buzzing, braces itself for what comes next, understanding that when bloodlines shift, power follows, and nothing, no rivalry, no legacy, no carefully constructed illusion, will ever look the same again. As the original shock begins to harden into reality, Genoa City enters a strange new phase, not calmer, not settled, but stoned, like a megacity holding its breath before a storm it knows is coming but can't yet see. And at the center of that charged stillness stands Audra Charles, now completely apprehensive that every step she takes sends temblors through families, pots, and long-standing grievances. And what unsettles people most isn't simply who her father is, but how little the disclosure seems to rattle her, because while others brute, fear, or posture, Audra moves forward with purpose, refusing to let herself be firmed in the part of recently discovered son, refusing to let her identity be reduced to a caption, and that resoluteness becomes apparent when she returns to Newman Enterprises not as a curiosity or a guest, but as a player with influence, walking into administrative spaces where exchanges falter mid-sentence, eyes tracking her with a blend of dubitation and admiration, because this is no longer just Victor Newman's company, not psychologically at least, not when his blood now sits across from him with her own docket, and Victor senses it too, the subtle shift in authority, the way people regard between them as if recalibrating where power truly lies, and for the first time in times, Victor feels commodity dangerously close to query, not because he doubts his strength, but because he recognizes a rival mind that understands him too well, and that consummation forces him into strange home, reflection, egging late-night exchanges with Nikki where he admits, reluctantly, that Audra didn't inherit her ambition from him alone, she honed it without him, survived without his name, and that makes her changeable in a way no Newman ever has been, while Nikki struggles with her own equivocal feelings, torn between resentment over a once treason resurfacing and a reticent admiration for Audra's countenance, her turn down to play victim, and as Nikki watches Victor navigate this new dynamic, she realizes their marriage, long defined by survival and concession, is entering another test, because accepting Audra doesn't just mean drinking a son, it means admitting an interpretation of Victor that was beyond their participated history, and across city, Jack Abbott wrestles with a quieter but inversely profound reckoning, because Audra's disclosure forces him to readdress his own complicated relationship with heritage, with the sons he's failed and fought for, with the secrets that formerly tore his family piecemeal, and as he observes Audra from a distance, he sees not just Victor's son, but a glass of the generational cycles Genoa City can't feel to escape, cycles of power, secretiveness, and ambition masquerading as fortune, and Jack's concern deepens when he notices Kyle growing decreasingly fixated on Audra's moves, interpreting them as pitfalls rather than openings, because Jack knows how fluently paranoia can metastasize into miscalculations, and he fears the coming generation may repeat the crimes of the last, indeed as they swear they'll do better, and meanwhile, Audra's particular life becomes contributory damage in ways she anticipated but undervalued, older betters questioning her motives, former suckers wondering whether they ever truly knew her, and new suitors approaching her with dockets thinly veiled as affection, and Audra navigates it all with calculated detachment, reminding herself that vulnerability is a currency she can't go right now, not when everyone wants commodity from her, not when indeed simple relations feel like accommodations, yet despite her armor, cracks begin to form in quieter moments, when she's alone with the knowledge that her life before this disclosure is gone, that she can't unknow what she knows, can't return to being undervalued, can't escape the gravitational pull of a father who embodies everything she's fought against and unconsciously emulated, and those internal conflicts consolidate when Victor attempts commodity unanticipated, an olive branch not of power, but of paternal curiosity, inviting Audra to a private regale devoid of business talk, an offer she nearly declines ahead fating its strategic value, and the evening unfolds with subdued pressure, stories participated cautiously, questions asked laterally, both circling the verity without naming it, because neither is ready to defy the emotional weight head-on, yet indeed in avoidance, connections face, participated instincts, analogous responses, resemblant doctrines about control and survival, and by the end of the night, Audra leaves not softened but unsettled, realizing that the bond she stressed doesn't need authorization to live, it's formally there, woven into her instincts, and that consummation terrifies her further than rejection ever could, because accepting Victor as her father means admitting that some corridor of herself was shaped long before she had a choice, and as word spreads of Victor's conditional outreach, responses consolidate, Victoria scuffling with covetousness she refuses to name, Nick questioning whether blood should overweigh fidelity, and the board of Newman Enterprises growing decreasingly restless as query creeps into stock vaticinations and investor confidence, and seeing the insecurity, Audra makes a move that surprises everyone, aligning herself intimately with a design that bridges Newman and Abbott interests, situating herself not as a wedge but as a conduit, and while some interpret it as an attempt to consolidate power, others see it as a test, a way for Audra to prove she won't be confined to inherited commitment, and Jack, fating the brilliance of the initiative, responds cautiously, offering collaboration without cession, apprehensive that every step they take together sends Victor a communication, and Victor, watching this play out, realizes his son may be rewriting the rules he spent decades administering, and that recognition sparks a reticent pride he masks beneath dubitation. Because Victor Newman doesn't yield fluently, not indeed to blood, and as pressures escalate, a new reproach threatens to overshadow everything, an old secret resurfacing tied not to Audra's lineage but to the circumstances girding her mammoth exposure from Genoa City times ago. A disclosure that reframes the history in unsettling ways, raising questions about whether Audra's absence from Victor's life was truly accidental or orchestrated. And as rumors swirl, Audra is forced to defy the possibility that her life's line was shaped not just by chance, but by deliberate choices made without her concurrence, and that consummation ignites a fury she can no longer suppress. turning her focus from assimilation to responsibility, and Genoa City braces as Audra prepares to pull at vestments others desperately want to keep buried, because the verity about who her father is was only the morning, and as she stands at the edge of this coming disclosure, eyes steady, resolve hardened, it becomes clear that Audra Charles is no longer replying to Genoa City's power structures, she's reconsidering them, and the megacity, erected on secrets and patrimonies, is about to face a reckoning far more destabilizing than anyone imagined, because when a son born in shadow decides to illuminate the history, no conglomerate, no alliance, no precisely guarded taradiddle survives unscathed.